Okay. Good evening, everyone. Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening to your
Yeah.
man.
Good evening. Good evening, Barrister.
It's a pleasure and a privilege to be amongst brethren tonight. So I'll be speaking on domestic violence. So basically, domestic violence or intimate partner violence can be defined as a pattern of negative behavior in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power and control over a partner. In a simple way, it just means any behavior that may frighten, intimidate, terrorize, manipulate, hurt, humiliate, blame, injure, or wound your partner. Domestic abuse can happen to anyone of a different race, age, sexual orientation, religion, or gender. But in Nigeria, we notice that not just in Nigeria, worldwide, we have noticed that, or reports and statistics show that domestic violence is mostly experienced by women. So there are different signs, telltale signs that would show that you are a victim of domestic violence. So there are simple questions that I'll put out there that would show or would help you tell if you are a victim of domestic violence. Now, if your partner embarrasses, humiliates you, makes fun of you, or put you down in front of your friends and your family, those are signs of domestic violence. If he puts down your accomplishments, if he makes you feel less of a person, when he tells you you can't do anything right, tell humiliating stories about you, makes you feel like you're unable to make decisions or even the right ones, uses intimidation, threats to gain compliance from you. Like saying things like, if you don't do this, I will not pay the children's school fees. If you don't do this, I will not provide food for the home. Makes you feel like you're nothing without them, treats you roughly, uses drugs, alcohol, or any other substance as an excuse for saying hurtful things or doing hurtful things to you. He could insult you and then apologize and be like, oh, I'm sorry. It was because I was drunk. Blame you on the way they feel or react, especially negatively. He could hit you and be like, oh, if you didn't say this, I wouldn't have hit you. Body shaming. Prevent you from doing things that you like doing. It could be in form of spending time with your friends or family.
Sorry, Barrister. Let me just interrupt you. Please, can we mute our mic? It's interfering. Please. Thank you. Over, Barrister.
Okay. As a victim, these are also signs that you yourself, you are a victim of domestic violence. When you feel scared or afraid of how your partner may behave or react to a certain situation, you have not done anything and yet you are afraid of doing that thing. Maybe you want to go out and you're like, I don't know, maybe if I go out now, maybe he's going to say this or he's going to do this or he's going to hit me. Or maybe if I buy this, if I buy gifts for my children, he would stop providing for us. He might stop providing food or he will not pay school fees. It could be constantly making excuses to other people about your partner's behavior. Like, oh, he's in a bad mood, you know, he had a bad day at work. Believing that your partner can change if only you change something about yourself. Maybe if I was working, he wouldn't insult me so much. Maybe if I was slimmer, he wouldn't body shame me. Always doing things that your partner wants you to do instead of doing something you want to do for yourself or your children. Staying with your partner because you're afraid of what he would do if you would ever leave or seek redress or even report to an authority. Now, there is a general assumption that anything that happens between a couple is a family matter and should not be treated in a court or reported to any law enforcement agency or even civil society organizations. Sometimes victims And when I say victims, I don't mean it's not particularly women, because we've seen, as a GBV responder, we've seen men complain of being beaten or emotionally abused by their wife, but they can't speak up because they feel, especially in Nigeria, oh, I'm sorry, I can't talk about it. It's a private matter, it's a family matter. They would feel stigmatized. But no, that shouldn't be so. That view is completely wrong. Criminal offenses, human rights offenses may arise from a marriage. And marriage is not a defense for any criminal offense committed by a spouse or against another. As long as it does not, marriage does not waive any human rights. It doesn't at all. Both parties in a marriage have equal rights and equal responsibilities. And they owe each other duties and can sue each other for violation of those human rights. Now I'm going to go straight into the forms of domestic violence that can be experienced in a marriage. These forms, these are not all the forms, but these are the forms that are seen between married people. And when I mean married people in this context, I mean married under the act or married in a church. So I'm going to start with talking about the most common form of violence, which is the physical violence. Physical violence can be defined as the maltreatment of a person which can result in harmful or adverse effects in respect of his or her physical health. It is usually the use of force, accompanied by fury, vehemence, outrage, especially physical force, unlawfully exercised with the intent to harm another. It could include hitting your partner, kicking them, burning them, grabbing them, pinching them, pushing, shoving, slapping, pulling their hair, biting them, scalding them, burning them, denying them medical care, forcing alcohol on them, pouring of acidic substances, use of other physical force. I've seen situations where a man and a woman could be doing something and then he throws a remote control at her or him. That's a form of physical abuse. Now, think that you're in a physical abusive relationship includes they damage properties when they are angry. They throw objects at you, they punch walls, they kick doors. While they might not have touched you physically, they have put fear in you. You are afraid of getting hurt. And now when we talk about violence, we mean anything that can frighten you. So physical abuse means when you are in a situation where you feel that you are in a place of harm, when your partner pushes you, slaps you, bites you, kicks you, or chokes you, that's a form of physical abuse. When they abandon you in a dangerous or unfamiliar place, we've seen situations where they could be quarreling in a car and then they get to a very lonely pit and the man says, go down. I don't think I can continue this journey with you. At that point, you know that place is not safe for you. You are in a state of fear. That particular experience can traumatize you. That is a form of physical abuse. Scares you by driving recklessly. I have seen situations where both you see people in a car and they're dragging the steering wheel. That is wrong. That is a form of physical abuse. Use a weapon to threaten or to hurt you, force you to leave your home, traps you in a home or keeps you from leaving, hurts your children in a bid to get back at you, use physical force in sexual situations. These are all forms of physical abuse. Physical abuse is prohibited by Section 252 of the Criminal Code Act and Section 2 of the VAP Act. The VAP Act is the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. It was passed in 2015, and it has been domesticated by more than 34 states in Nigeria. Punishment prescribed for physical violence, according to the provisions of the VAP Act, is 5 years imprisonment or a fine of 100,000, or both. You pay the fine and then you also go to prison. Subsection 2 says a situation where someone aids and abets. In a situation where you and your wife, you are living in a communal setting, members of your family are in the same house with you, and then maybe during a fight or a quarrel, they beat up your wife. They have aided and abetted you. So they are also They have also committed the offense of physical abuse. I'll go to the next one, which is the emotional and psychological violence. This means a pattern of degrading, humiliating conduct towards any person, and it includes repeated insults. You know, when we insult each other, you tell someone you're a goat, you're a fool, you're stupid. That's a form of emotional violence. You ridicule them, look at you. You don't have sense. Name calling, repeated threats. I will deal with you to cause emotional pain. Undermining a person's sense of self-worth through constant criticism. Belittling one's abilities. Damaging a partner's relationship with children. Or not letting a partner see their friends and family. Those are all forms of psychological and emotional abuse. Now, these are things that would show you that you are in an emotionally abusive relationship. If your partner calls you names, insults you, or continually criticizes you, both at home, in the presence of your family, in the presence of your friends, wherever it is, humiliates you, does not trust you, or acts in a jealous or possessive way. Some people think that when their partners are, oh my God, please don't get anywhere, I can't do without you. It's a form of, it's love. No, it's a controlling situation. They try to isolate you from your family and friends. They monitor your whereabouts. They call you. They want to know who you are with. You don't have any form of freedom. They punish you by withholding affection. They ask for your permission. They expect you to ask for their permission for even the littlest thing. You have your own money, you want to buy something, and they say, oh, no, don't worry. No, please don't do that. Did you tell me before you bought it? Something that you know is for the good of your family. They threaten to hurt you, the children or your family or your pets, for those who have pets. They humiliate you in all situations. For some families, male child preference. Oh, you have five female children. Why can't you give me a son? Why can't you give me an heir? They prefer or treat their parents, their families, better than they treat you, that is their spouse. That is a form of emotional or psychological abuse. In the simplest term, it's just anything that would cause hurt or emotional distress to another party. And this offense is punishable with an imprisonment for not more than 1 year. It is punishable under the VAP Act, or a fine of 200,000, or both, considering the magnitude of the situation. We also have sexual abuse. Sexual abuse in the simplest term means forcing a partner to take part in a sexual act, even when the partner does not want it, does not consent. Right now, there is no provision for marital rape in Nigeria. But in this context, for a happy marriage, I believe that, it should never happen in a marriage. For you to enjoy conjugal relations, it must be with the consent of both parties. While it might not be punishable under any of the laws in Nigeria, it is also a ground for dissolution of marriage. Now, there are telltale signs of sexual abuse that does not include penetration, and they accuse you of cheating. You go out, oh my God, where did you go to? Were you with a man, or you have friends? I have seen situations where husbands accuse their wives of sleeping with their cousins or their male friends. Sometimes you see a wife accusing a husband of sleeping with almost everything on skirt, and it's not true. It might not be the reality of the spouse in question, but it's a form of sexual abuse. They want to sexualize you. They want you to dress in a sexual way, provocative way. They insult you or call you sexual names, bitch. Certain names just does not sound good. They force you or manipulate you into having sex or performing sexual acts. They hold you down during sex. They demand sex from you even when you are sick tired or after violating and beating you. They hurt you with weapons or objects. These days is all sex toys all over the place. Even when your partner does not agree with that kind of sexual act, yeah, just because you want to satisfy yourself, you force her into it. Involving other people in sexual activities with you. We hear of threesome, multiple orgies. You ignore their feelings towards sex. I'm not interested, I'm not in the mood, but you know, what matters is that he or she wants it, and at the end of the day, you just do it. Any of these things, they don't lead, while yes, part of the ingredients for a happy marriage is sexual relations. But if any of these things listed above is being carried out, is being performed in the marriage, then I don't see how happy that marriage can be. Then we also have what is called economic abuse or financial abuse. We've seen situations where a man, mostly it happens in Nigeria, it's mostly men who have the upper hand, who are financially capable. They deprive their family of any form of finance, any form of resources. They drop 1,000 naira for food for 1 week. They ask their wives not to work. They say, oh, honey, let's do joint accounts. Don't worry, we'll be withdrawing the monies together. But at the end of the day, you want to withdraw money, maybe as a man, as a woman, and the other party says, oh, I don't think it's necessary. You diminish the person's capacity to support themselves because you are maybe running a joint account. Or I have seen situations where a man will tell a woman, okay, madam, don't worry, we are running this marriage together, we're in this together. When they pay you salary, bring it. Whenever you need anything, I'll give you the money. And then he holds on to this money. Oh, Oga, honey, sweetheart, I want to buy bra, I want to buy pant, and he's all, oh, no, it's not necessary. You don't need a new one now. Just, you look good, don't bother. Or they make people depend on them unnecessarily. Before you can buy sweet for yourself, you have to take permission. Other forms of economic abuse could be withholding, could be forbidding attendance at school. Maybe you had promised the woman, oh, don't worry, when I marry you, I will sponsor you through school. And she happily gets into it. And at the end of the day, you say, no, I did not plan for that. I don't have money for that. Not only have you deprived her of finances, you have also made her incapable of growing. You tell a woman, you won't work in this house. As long as I'm providing, as long as I am the one in this house, you won't work. Don't worry, I'll provide for the both of us. That is a form of economic abuse. And is provided for in the VAP Act. And is actually punishable, really, with an imprisonment of not more than 2 years or a fine of 500,000. Because basically, economic abuse reduces someone's self-worth. We've seen a lot of people fall into depression from that. We also have forced isolation and separation from family and friends. The essence of this is to isolate you from people that you need. And now this one is not just, it's not isolated really. Whoever tries to isolate you from the family and friends is usually violating other forms of your human rights. He could beat you, and in a bid to hide it from your family and friends, he tells you, no, don't go visit them. In fact, your family, they are banned from coming to this house because he or she does not want your family to know what is going on with you. They tell you, you can go visit your family, but don't carry my children with you. That is totally wrong. Or a situation whereby you carry the children and you run away. Most women do this, especially when they're having problems with their husband. They carry their children, they run away from their homes and do not allow access to their spouses. That is a form of abuse. And the imprisonment prescribed for it is 6 months or a fine of 100,000 or both, according to Section 13 of the VAP Act. We also have incest. Incest is a sexual activity within the family. It could be between father and mother, father and child. It could be between mother and children, brothers and sisters, grandparents, grandchildren. But if you read the news these days, you see a lot of situations where fathers are molesting their children, especially the female children. Uncles are molesting their children, are molesting their nieces and nephews. The incestuous parties, that is the person violating these rights, are basically basically adults who has a lot of emotional needs, but cannot, maybe out of lack of self-esteem, self-worth, cannot interact with adults. So what they do is they seek a more controllable victim, which is usually a child.
That lecture I post.
Please kindly mute when you are not talking. Let's listen to the speaker. And please, Barrister, I have less than.
I muted everyone. Speaker, unmute yourself.
Okay, that is a form of violence. We have abandonment of children, spouse, and other dependents without means of sustenance. You have a quarrel with your husband and your wife because you are the benefactor in the family. You live and you do not provide. They go hungry for days. That is a form of violence and is provided for in Section 16 of the VAP Act. And you could go to prison for 1 year. We have intimidation, which is causing of reasonable apprehension of injury to a person, child or dependent. Intimidation causes the other person to live for the fear of their own safety. It could be done to a family member. Maybe you're living with your aged mother-in-law. You maltreat them, or your children. You intimidate your children or your wife. It could be anyone within the family circle. We also have first ejection from matrimonial home. This is a situation where it could be either of the parties, but I don't know. I keep saying a man because 80% of cases we've had or I have seen, it is the men who are perpetrators of domestic violence. A man throws his wife's belongings out of the house and says, no, you can't come in here anymore. You've done this, you've done that, and as such, you can't access the home. That is an offense and is punishable under the Act, Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, with a punishment for 2 years. And then we have offensive conducts. These are situations where a spouse is either very aggressive, abusive, intimidating, harassing, violent, very vexatious. At all points, he's angry. At all points, he's very aggressive. There is nothing you do that can placate him. This is also an offense under Section 5 of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. We have coercion. This is to force someone to do things they would normally not do. You tell your wife, go and borrow money from your family, I will pay back. You've borrowed in the past, but because she's afraid of you, she goes to borrow and you will not pay. We have instances of women going to loan facilities to borrow money for their husbands, and at the end of the day, they abandon them and leave. All these, they fall under coercion. Or you beat the person. You force this person to do something they just are not comfortable to do. That's an offense under Section 3 of the VAP Act, and the punishment prescribed is for 3 years, attack with harmful substance. It could be hot water, it could be acid, it could just be anything that would cause harm on your spouse. And it's provided for in Section 21 of the VAP Act. We have spousal battery, which is also the same thing as physical abuse. Though the provisions of the VAP Act calls this spousal because this is expressly limited between husband and wife. And the punishment for it is 3 years. We have bigamy. Bigamy could either be polygyny or polyandry. We also have adultery. we have adultery and infidelity. There is no provision for it under the Criminal Code Act or under the VAP Act, but it could be a ground for dissolution of marriage. Now, in the Catholic Church, it is believed that, forever, for better, for worse, we stay together. But in an abusive relationship, it is advisable to leave that place for some time for your own safety. The Bible, some abusive men take the text from the Bible and distort it. They say that Ephesians 5:22 says, wives should be subordinate to their husbands as their Lord, to justify their behavior. But the thing is, Christ says, love your wife as you love the church. In loving your wife, physical abuse or any form of violence should not be tolerated. The Catholic bishops have also condemned the use of the Bible to support abusive behavior in any form. Men and women are created in God's image, and they should treat each other with dignity, respect to human rights. Time is really fast gone and short. I would end here so that the other speaker will be given time to talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barrister. We're trying as much as possible to encourage participants. So I want to, let's maybe take note of our comments or contributions. At the end of the two speakers, we'll give room for comment for just few persons. Please, Dr. Ashikeni. Dr. Ashikeni?
Yes,
okay.
I can hear you.
Okay,
Good
I
evening,
can see. Good
Professor
evening. So
Agbo.
please, yes, so please, you have 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All protocols observed. I thank Chioma, Barrister Chioma, for that beautiful foundation. I will be talking more on the medical aspect, but I would like to introduce myself by saying that the family, as we all know, is key. It's a setting where most of this violence takes place, in the home, in the family. But of course, we all know that the family is expected to provide the security and emotional support that we need to grow and to develop. However, we have seen from what has been said and what we have observed that most of this domestic violence takes place in family settings in Nigeria, in most societies all over the world. The records have shown that in our country, 1 in 4 women have experienced abuse from an intimate partner in her lifetime. And if you look at it globally, the figure is as high as 1 in 3 women having had experienced this violence in the home. A woman's age is known to be a factor in the sense that it's very common in younger women, 18 to 24 years, in terms of abuse. But of course, it can cut across all ages. Of course, education. A woman who is not well educated is likely to experience more abuse. Rural more than urban residents, and income. Women or people with lower income tend to experience this violence more. Of course, we all know that in some women or families, even in the rich, it is experienced, but it's seen more in people who have lower income, less power, and then many people experience intimate partner violence when you have in the family where there's imbalance of power, whether economic power or there's financial power. Now, we have also seen that some possible reasons that have been adduced to this violence, I will call them more of excuses, but most times you find that these assaults or violence occur in drunken families, especially when the man claims he was drunk, he was not in the right state of mind, and perpetrates this violence. In some other families, we've seen financial issues when one of them is more financially buoyant, especially if the man has more financial power, he tends to lord it over the woman. Then cause frustration in the family for whatever reason may trigger violence. And rejection of sexual advances from the partner will trigger violence in some settings. Now, domestic violence and the Catholic Church, one will wonder, is there domestic violence in the Catholic families? Do we find families, Catholic families, experiencing this? Yes. The answer is yes. It occurs even in Catholic families. Again, is domestic violence right? The answer is a capital no. The Holy Father, Pope Francis, in 2016, in the post-synodal apostolic exhortation, addressed this very squarely when he mentioned that domestic violence exists in families, in our church and in our parishes, and also added that we cannot turn a blind eye to it. This was in 2016, and the Joy of Love, Amoris Laetitia, clearly states that. Again, he goes on to say that violence against women in or outside the home is completely unjustified, and any form of violence is a sin. He reiterated Canon 1153 and mentioned that in cases where a spouse and children experience violence and abuse, separation becomes inevitable, and it is even morally necessary for their safety. So Chioma earlier mentioned that most people will say that it's for better, for worse, and in sickness and in good health. But then that violence, that maltreatment, that I can say wicked maltreatment of your spouse is what is responsible for most separation in these settings. Now, do we have medical consequences in cases of domestic violence? Yes, the answer is yes. Domestic violence results in immediate effects on health, especially women, because women are usually the victims in most cases. These effects may be fatal and may cost the life of the woman. Now, these effects may be timed as physical, they may be mental or behavioral health consequences, and they can persist long after the event has taken place. The violence might have taken place and stopped, but these consequences, whether physical, whether mental or behavioral, may persist well beyond that violent effect. So now we looked at physical. What are the physical consequences? These are things you can see physically. It will include injuries are very common where you have domestic violence. And Chioma had told us earlier on, you find the spouse will even prevent the victim from going out so that people will not see. And in some cases, it's even the victim that will wear makeup and cover up all the injuries so that nobody can see. So physical injuries are very common, and they could appear on the face. There could be fractures involving the teeth. There could be fractures of other bones and other parts of the body. Now, physical injuries may also involve things like burns, whether with water, hot water, or the pressing iron, or even with acid burns, chemical burns. Then, of course, we have issues like road traffic accidents that could occur simply because there's a history of abuse or domestic violence. This one, probably the person is emotionally disturbed and you're driving, cannot concentrate, and what results is a road traffic accident. Now, the mental or behavioral consequences or health problems that could emanate from such domestic violence include things like anxiety, frank psychosis, depression, loss of self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence. And of course, such a person cannot be productive. So loss of productivity with its consequences, economic and otherwise. People may lose their jobs when they become less productive. And this is based purely because of domestic violence in the home. Now, stress or even post-traumatic stress disorder could also continue to be seen in people that have suffered trauma in the past, and they manifest with several symptoms that include anxiety and even psychosis. Now, because of the stress, you may see things like high blood pressure that may even result in stroke. There are cases of peptic ulcer disease that you can trace them to the stress from the family setting. Alcoholism, drug and substance abuse, and even suicidal tendencies, self-injury, and deaths have been reported to have arisen in cases where you have physical or domestic violence. Now, if you listen to the news or you tune to your radio, on a daily basis, there are accounts and reports of domestic violence. I will just state here a few that you must have heard of that come to mind. Of course, the popular gospel artist, Osinachi, is a case in mind. This happened, the story is well documented. I'm sure you all heard about it. The reports indicate that most victims of domestic violence still shy away from reporting cases of domestic violence. In this case, it had been going on for a while, and probably because of cultural reasons or fear of stigma, records have also shown that there's barely a week that passes by without such incidents. Now, not many Nigerians will forget in a hurry the tragic story of the Nigerian gospel singer Osinachi Nwachukwu, who died after suffering from alleged domestic violence from her husband. Now, the husband, Peter, was alleged to have kicked her in the chest, leading to a blood clot that eventually killed her. Now, when the story about the circumstance around her death broke, the public were not only shocked, they queried how such a gifted singer suffered domestic violence for such a long time without respite. Sadly, Osinachi joins several cases of women across Nigeria whose untimely deaths and injuries were because of domestic violence, often by a spouse or intimate partner. So this was recorded in 2022, and it's just one of so many cases. We pray here that her soul and the souls of all other victims, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. Now, shortly after that, in Lagos, there were also cases that have been reported. One David Idebi, who resides in Ajah, Lagos State, was arrested for the death of his 42-year-old wife, Juliana, who was found dead in their apartment. In April 2, the same year, Anulika Uguru, a mother of 7, died in Ebonyi State following alleged domestic violence and wife battery by her husband. Another case, Mrs. Abimbola, wife of a popular car dealer, popularly known as IVD, reportedly died in a fire incident. However, the family has alleged that their late daughter suffered severe domestic violence and abuse in the hands of her husband before her untimely death. And so many cases like that all across the country. So what do we need to do? Do we just sit and watch? No. Of course, Barrister Chioma has told us the various legal aspects, provisions of the law that will give respite to victims. But most times it is late. The victim is already dead. So we need to do something before it is too late. And we are called upon by this webinar today to try to practice some of these suggestions here. To stop violence, we must tell someone when we see it or we are victims ourselves. So telling someone may save somebody's life. Do not keep it to yourself. Do not hide it. Do not pretend that it doesn't exist. And do not hope that there will be a change soon, because there may be no change. So the first thing to do is to report it and to make sure that somebody is informed and we can take action. Again, we need to take all cases of violence and abuses seriously. We need to make sure that we are individualistic in the sense that you open up and don't keep things. Make sure that what you do not like, any behavior you do not like, either be it in the domestic or family setting, you inform your partner so that there can be a solution. Take back your power, because power, most people just give up their power and you allow your spouse to take over and do whatever he likes. Now, a family is supposed to be mutually understanding with love, and where there is love, there is no show of power. Now, you also remember that putting others down doesn't raise you. We know that a lot of psychological trauma comes from putting others down. So we remember that it is not the best thing to do. Identify what is wrong and know that wrong is wrong. Whatever is wrong can never be right. So insist on the right things being done in a relationship or in the family setting. We should be friendly and supportive of victims and encourage them to open up. Show love and not hate, especially in the family setting. This will go a long way to helping to prevent several frictions and situations that could lead to violence that could cause the life of victims. So we'll stop here and then take any contributions or comments or questions. But remember, say something. Don't be silent in the face of violence, or else the consequences may be so dear and irrevocable and irretrievable. Permanent, when there is death, it is permanent, and there is no other recourse.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, the two speakers, the barrister and Dr. Ashikeni. Please, can we just appreciate them? Maybe I'll do it on your behalf. Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you. At this point in time, we want to give room for questions and comments. Just 3 persons. I want to, if there's any person in the house, then I'll give the 2 slots to delay, a male and a female. Preferably, I know that we'll have some participants from Zimbabwe. So we'll give 1 slot from home and 1 from outside. So please, can we show by a raise of hand if you have a comment or question? Comments or questions?
Yes, I have one.
Okay,
I have a
please.
comment, Reverend Father Teddy from Jaligo.
Okay, I've taken note of Father. Yes, Father 1. Who is the second person?
I have one from Yola, Adamawa State.
Okay, Yola 2. Anybody for Zimbabwe? Okay, Swaziland. Anyone from Swaziland? Okay. So, Father, I have the floor. Please, let's be snappy.
Yes, first of all, I want to thank God for this forum. And just to be very snappy, I think to solve this issue of domestic violence, a lot of the lay people, the professionals, should be part of the marriage courses in their parishes. You know, if these talks that we had now are given more practically in the preparation of couples, young couples who want to enter marriage in the marriage courses in their by professionals now, you know, the civil angle and all the angles, I think it would be of great help, great help. And secondly, my last point, I think on women, the truth of the matter remains that women are the receiving end, especially because of the culture that we come from, all these cultural things. And so I think women should become more brave, should be more courageous. You know, I'm one of those who do not like this thing they say one must marry. I don't think marriage, if it's better not to marry than to live in a marriage that you are unhappy all your life. And so I think we should encourage women to be more courageous in speaking out and believing and insisting on their rights and equal dignity in every marriage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father. That was very a good comment. Thank you. I appreciate that. And just to say one or two things, it's very important that what Father has just said, we should advise couples. Some of us here are sponsors at weddings. How well do we follow up this couple? How well do you advise them? This is very important. The sponsorship should not just be at the wedding. It should be during, not just at the marriage, but throughout. So this is just an addition to what Father has said. Yola, you have the floor. Somebody from Yola. I can see 3 hands. There's Francis from Abuja, there's Francis from Jos, and there's Divine. So after Yola, we'll decide which of the Francis will give. So the Yola participants, you have the floor, please.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is John Peter Opa from Yola. While I go alongside with Father Thaddeus, I think it will be good equally in marriage if during the premarital course, there's this course on anger management, because there has been serious issues where spouses are really hurt, whichever side, male or the female, are hurt in marriage, especially in the northern part, which for some years now, which you have noticed, where several women stabbed their husbands to death for one reason or the other, out of anger, without being rational enough. And next, I would like to add is that, based on the analysis of Barrister Chioma, it is virtually 99% of domestic violence go to men. But the truth of the matter is, domestic violence, emotional, economical, fiscal, whatever the name it carries, I think it's both sides. Because one thing is that when we talk about domestic violence, we can't throw away where we are coming from, our culture, the religion, and the law. Now, what are we talking about? She talked about the husband being at the backside, or something because he starts to provide for the family, and the wife looks at it and waits. And because of that, one thing, this, another, he becomes a little bit rigid sometimes. But the truth is, does the church and does the culture and does the law really provide or really educate the couples on the fact that the family is for both, not for the husband? If the couples or the couple are educated on the fact that the family is for both and not for the man to take care of. Some of the violence or domestic violence can be taken care of, but in a situation whereby 99%.
Just try and summarize, please. Yes.
Yes, please. But in a situation whereby 99% of the family needs are on the husband, you can expect anything to come out of it. So I'm of the opinion, during premarital course, the law, those that are concerned, the culture, people should be educated, or the couple should be educated on the fact that the family is for the boss, not for the man, and not to lay load on the man. With that will reduce a heavy and related number or strength of family violence. Thank you.
Very much, Mr. Pete John from Yola. That was very nice. Please, is Divine for you? Is she a female? So that I'll give a female the opportunity to speak.
Yes, it's actually a female. Good evening.
Okay, so Divine, please, you have the floor. Let's listen to a female.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much for this opportunity to really participate in this. I'm sorry, I'm just breathing so fast because I'm in a meeting, so I had to step aside, to contribute the little quota that I have. This topic is actually a very sensitive topic for me because I've seen a lot lately, and some people say that, oh, the devil is against marriage. The devil is planning to pull down marriage in this period we find ourselves. But I do not really think that it is the devil. I think that people have actually become so intolerant of one another. People have actually decided not to obey the laws of the Lord, the commandments of the Lord. That being said, I believe that marriage should be a place where people, fulfill their potentials. No one, not even a man or a woman, should restrict the other person. There should be support for each other to fulfill their full potentials, their destiny. When one person tries to restrict the other person, there's bound to be clash. I've seen that over and over again. There should be love. There should be understanding. There should be tolerance. And I heard some people saying follow-up counseling and all of that. That's a really fantastic point. But the thing is this, no matter the level of marriage counseling or follow-up that we do or that, people engage in, if people do not really make conscious efforts to change their life, to change their habits, to be loving, to be kind, it's not going to work. It won't work. Men and women should really obey the words of the Lord. The Bible says that love is patient, love is kind, love forgives. They do not keep records of wrongs. But it seems like when people come into the marriage, they throw all of these things away. And there's fight, there's power struggle, there's battle for supremacy and all of that. As long as people, when I say people, I mean husband and wife, if there's no love, genuine love, the one that God has commanded us to do, to love one another, to respect the feelings of other people, it's not going to work. And I just leave it here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe with the permission of Father, we combine the question section with the answer. But what I said earlier, it's very good that we encourage most participants to this webinar. So when we keep to time, people tend to participate more next time. So because of that, I'll just give Francis a few seconds just to say something. Sorry, Virginia, can you just put your questions on the chat? We'll respond to that.
Okay,
Francis,
Prof,
yes.
please.
Okay, Father.
Let's allow 4 of them to talk. And we
Okay,
are
3
giving
of them.
them 30 seconds each. 30 seconds each.
Okay, Father. Okay, so Father has given. So Francis actually, you have the floor. After that, then Adakole will speak. Then Virginia. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Thank you to the speakers. This is a good topic we have discussed today. My contribution is that we neighbors, colleagues, family members, to the families that are having violence should be proactive.
Kindly mute your mic, Barrister Chioma.
Okay. Oh, so sorry.
We neighbors, families, relatives, and colleagues around families that are having violence should not hide it. And I'm also looking at a situation if there could be compensation and reward to persons that report violence occurring in families. It's not that you are being a busybody, but it's to save life and also protect the children that are growing in such families. So if there's a violence you have identified in family A, I'm suggesting that we should have law that said reports. And when those persons report that there's a violence in such families, they should be rewarded handsomely for making that reward. We should see violence as a criminal activity. So that there's violence in house B, you won't say it doesn't concern me. You report. If we start compensating people that are reporting violence, I believe it will reduce small. They will be compensated, whether it's government compensating them or after discussing the violence case, the person that is guilty that is going to pay, and out of it, they get a compensation. So we'll be looking out for each other. If I see that you are violent in your family, I'm going to report. And I'll make something out of that, your violence. When people have nothing to pay for what they have done, there's a tendency to want to continue it. So it's just a suggestion that I'm making. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Dr. Adakole, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. And thank you for the presenters. It's been very exciting. I just want to make 3 quick points. The first one is when courtship is done properly and genuinely, it can help to prevent these cases of violence in future. So for instance, if as a woman or as a lady, you notice that your spouse-to-be has violent tendencies, don't give excuse that he will change. It may be something you can't change. So run away from that courtship so that it doesn't result in a violent marriage later on in life. Then the other thing is also training our children, particularly our girls, to have self-worth for themselves. When you have self-worth, you will not have inferiority complex and take all sorts of rubbish, you know, from a man. And then, okay, because your own self-esteem is low, you just go for anything. Then the last one, and I think which is also the most important, is that a lot of times we practice cultural Christianity. So sometimes our cultural practices goes against Christian principles, our Catholic principles. And because we are very culturally inclined, it now supersedes what the church teaches us. So where our culture clashes with our Christian values, our Catholic values should supersede. Thank you very much. These are my points. Over.
Thank you very much. I love the last one, cultural Christianity. We should stop that. Thank you. Virginia, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This very topic is sensitive. I am from Ibadan, Oyo State. I'm a marriage counselor anyway. My own contribution is that there should be education and awareness of this violence, domestic violence. Many people may know it, and many people may know that even to discuss about it is a difficult matter. So we need to encourage them report if there's something like this. And this awareness or education should be very regular. It could be in the church, in our parishes, so that people will get to know about it. Another one, my brother talked about reporting. Reporting violence is very, very important. And then where are we going to report? Do we have units in parishes where we can put this reporting? Because some people may say, where will I report? Then you need to transport yourself or to look for centers where you're going to report. But if there are small units in parishes, that won't take much time to reach. So it will help, it will go a long way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for all the contributions and the comments and additions. And we now know that this topic, this topic is very...
Sorry, can I respond to where she can report, where people can report?
Okay, yes, you can.
So basically every...
Yes. Please say a word.
Sorry.
Please hold on. Before you respond, we have questions here. So the response will come as we are addressing the questions.
Okay, please. Okay, let me just say something. Thank you, Father. We can see that this topic is very important. And there was, when the presenters were saying something, there was something about which Dr. Adakole said something a little about. We tend to move from religion and move and adopt cultural norms. So cultural norms tend to support this violence act. So it will be very difficult for persons, for couples to have a divide between which one is a cultural norm and which one is a religion. So it's left for us to practice what is ideal. Most marriages now, they just rush into marriage without going to the ideal, knowing yourself and going through the Catholic laid down principle of courtship. So this is another point. There's something I want to say is about having a working class wife, not just a full-time housewife. Those are before. You don't put all the burden on your spouse, just like what the man from Yola said. When the burden is too much on a particular spouse, it may be a man, it may be a woman. We should learn to tell any gathering, either the women folks, either the CWO or the CMO, what is it that we need to do to add value to the home? What can we do to bring more food to the table and not leave the burden on just one partner? It's not only in Nigeria. This is an African concept. So I want to maybe hand over the moderation to Father to conclude from here. Father, if you permit me, if that's okay with you. Thank you, Father.
All right, thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. We are running out of time. Let's quickly address the questions. Then at the end, Sister can now respond to what she wants to respond to. The first question here says, can domestic violence lead to mental illness, example, madness? If yes, at what stage can this occur? This question is for the first speaker, Barrister Chioma, you there? Dr. Matthew, any of you can respond quickly.
Yes, let me take that. It appears to be medically inclined. Yes, the answer is definitely yes. If you listened during the presentation, I mentioned that there could be behavioral change, psychological trauma associated with domestic violence. So possibility of somebody developing a lot of anxiety, a lot of behavioral change, even leading to depression and psychosis is very, very, very high. Now, if you assess and evaluate them, you discover that different people have different personalities. Some people have more capacity to absorb stress and manage stress, but others do not, especially the quiet type that do not speak out, open up, and report to a friend, to their parish priest, or to a confidant. People that are close, closely knit. They don't, these so-called introverts, they break down very easily, and you find them manifesting the effects of this breakdown easily. So it depends on the makeup, it depends on your personality, but whether it is possible, definitely yes. It's very, very possible that people have some mental issues following marriage problems or even this domestic violence. Yeah.
All right, thank you. The next one is from Martin Bono. Martin Bono, I guess what you put here is not a question. If it's a question, could you rephrase it and send it back in the chats? Because it doesn't sound like a question. If you meant to ask a question, please rephrase it and put it back in the chat. We now take the next one.
Dennis, questions, please.
I can, yeah.
As a question, I didn't know the one, but I put them on the chat box. I don't know which one of them we're asking.
Okay, just say it quickly. Say it quickly.
But I didn't know the one you're asking about. I didn't know. Can you just give me?
There's one you're talking about relocating to.
Yes.
Okay. No. Yes, I asked it. Yeah, I said that's a. Someone has answered it. Someone has already answered it.
All right. It has been answered.
Yes,
okay, awesome.
Thank you so much.
That's abandonment.
Abandonment,
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And now it's a form of violence, yeah.
We have contribution from Dr. Achebe. No need to read it. It's part of what he has said before. Another question here. Others are contribution. Please, I'm not reading the contributions. We can read that in the chat, only the questions. Okay. I think we don't have more questions in the chats. That's basically all we have. So, sister, you can go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for this topic. I've been in a pre-marriage program and family issues. What I want to say here is, where do we put forgiveness in the marriage, Catholic marriage? And again, somebody mentioned that violence, you leave the marriage. If there's no life that is sweet, it's give and take. Sometimes if we say, okay, leave, nobody will be in marriage, because many marriages, they are from different backgrounds. So they continue to give and take and forgive each other. And where there is love, most of these things we are talking about should be, it's not what you talk about. Or when it goes to the extreme, all right. But, and that's why sometimes we have sponsors who can listen to what is happening and advise the couple. So I want to say that, and again, some men or women, they're very saucy, they're not trained. And so during marriage, 1 to 5 years, they continue to learn each other, to understand where they are going, because courtship these days is not courtship. They just rush into it, as I've been said. So these are the little ones. I thank you so much.
All right, sister. Thank you. I guess I'm not leaving any question behind. If you put a question in the chat, which I didn't read, please just ask it. You can unmute yourself and ask it. We are about to conclude. Somebody that there is a comment concerning Igbo culture widowhood. In Igbo culture, widowhood practices are justified. I mean, shaving of heads, shaming a woman, false accusations, drinking of water used to clean the dead spouse, and all of that. Yeah, we can find that in other parts of Africa too. I guess what the person meant is that the person is not asking a question, but making a contribution. Some of the cultural practices that somebody has raised before, we Catholics, we shouldn't be part of them. It's unfortunate that we see some Catholics who are also part of that. They force a widow to go and drink the water used to paint the cause, and you come to the church and receive Holy Communion. You know, many of those traditional cultural practices shouldn't be part of us as Catholics, as Christians. So we take that as comment, as contribution. We all have listened to the teachings. It's now left for us to implement them.